central Iran, 58 kilometers northeast of Isfahan, 2:10 in the morning, 84 U.S. Army Delta Force operators from 1st Special Forces Operational Detachment Delta were spread across the ridgeline above the IRGC Ghost Tunnel complex. Inside the mountain, 348 Iranian forces guarded a buried missile command center linked to 24 launch units across central Iran. The U.S. Army had 90 minutes to erase the network before reinforcements sealed the mountain. The Ghost Tunnel complex sat under 3 layers of reinforced concrete and rock. It had 4 surface bunkers, 3 tunnel mouths, 2 freight elevators, and 1 main command chamber buried 62 meters below ground. Iranian forces believed the site could survive air attack, jamming, and a ground raid at the same time. They had motion sensors on every approach road, thermal cameras on 14 towers, 6D SHK heavy machine guns, 4 ZU, 23-2 anti-aircraft guns, and 18 PKM machine gun pits tied together by trenches and concrete firing slots. Inside the mountain, the defense was tighter. Iranian forces sealed each passage with steel blast doors and staggered kill zones. The main control floor had 3 backup generators, 2 hardened radio rooms, and a vault that held launch codes, fiber routing maps, and guidance updates for Shahab and Imad missile batteries. The mountain was supposed to give the defenders time. The backup tunnels were supposed to stop a clean breach. The distance from the nearest major base was supposed to make rescue impossible for any raiding force. The assault plan was simple and tight. Alpha Element had 20 Delta Force operators and the job of cutting the outer guns and tower network. Bravo Element had 22 operators and would breach the west tunnel with shaped charges and C4. Charlie Element had 20 operators and would drop through the north elevator shaft, seize the upper control floor, and cut internal communications. Delta Element had 22 operators and would drive straight for the buried missile command chamber, destroy the servers, and plant thermite on every launch console they found. At 2:12, the assault began. 2 muffled blasts hit the first camera towers at the same time. Alpha opened fire with MK11 Mod 0 rifles and suppressed the nearest DSHK positions before the Iranian forces on the ridge understood what was happening. Bravo moved low through a dry cut in the rock and reached the west tunnel mouth under cover of dark. Charlie fast roped onto the service platform above the north shaft. Delta moved behind Bravo with breaching kits, extra demolition packs, and 3 MK48 Mod 0 machine gunners covering the rear. The first Iranian response was fast but broken. Guards in the outer trench line fired AK-74 rifles toward Alpha's muzzle flashes. A PKM team tried to sweep the slope. Alpha hit the gun pit with a Carl Gustav M3 round. The trench line went silent. At the west entrance, Bravo found a steel gate already dropping. A breacher fixed a linear charge across the locking track and detonated it. The gate bent inward. Bravo rushed through the dust and took the first corridor before the 12 Iranian forces inside the tunnel could form a line. At 2:14, the fight split into 4 battles at once. Alpha cleared Bunker 1 with M4A1SO PMOD 2 carbines and moved to Bunker 2, where 9 Iranian forces tried to man a ZU-23-2 gun. A Delta operator fired an AT-4 into the embrasure. The gun and its crew were knocked out. Bravo pushed 41 meters into the west tunnel and hit a cross passage guarded by sandbags and a PKM. A flash charge went over the barrier. 2 operators rolled left, 2 rolled right. The PKM gunner went down. Charlie cut through the shaft door with a shaped charge. dropped onto the upper platform and killed the power to the internal camera loop. That blackout changed the whole defense. Iranian forces in the lower halls lost sight of the feed wall. Officers started calling by field radio instead of landline. Delta used the confusion and moved through the maintenance branch toward the first blast door. The door was sealed from inside. A breacher pressed date cord around the hinges and locking wheel. The charge snapped the wheel off. Once Delta forced the door open and entered a passage lined with cable trays and fuel pipes. Iranian forces fired RPG-7 rounds down the hall. One rocket struck the wall. Concrete fragments wounded 2 Delta operators. The team kept moving. At 2:16, Alpha had the surface almost cut away from the mountain. They set C4 on the last tower repeater and fired an M240B burst across the east trench when 17 Iranian forces tried to counterattack uphill. 3 defenders fell in the open. The rest pulled back behind the bunker line. Bravo reached the vehicle bay and found 4 missile guidance trucks under maintenance lights. The trucks were not the main prize, but they mattered. Bravo stacked thermite charges on each engine block and moved on. Charlie pushed room to room along the upper floor and hit the radio center. Inside were 14 Iranian forces. He had 2 signal racks and 1 emergency switchboard. Charlie threw 2 flash charges, entered and took the room in 26 seconds. The first organized Iranian defense formed below them. An officer pulled 32 defenders into the main stairwell and tried to hold the choke point with 2 PKM machine guns and 1 DSHK mounted on a low tripod. Charlie could not stop there. A Delta operator leaned out, marked the stairwell mouth, and an orbiting drone sent 1 AGM-114 Hellfire straight through the surface vent above the stair core. The blast crushed the DSHK. Mukai broke the railing and filled the lower landing with dust. Charlie rushed down before the defenders could recover and cleared the first stair turn with MK18 CQBR carbines at arm's length. At 2:18, Delta reached the inner security ring. This was the hardest part of the complex. Yet the hall narrowed to 2 meters. Steel shutters covered firing slots on both sides. Iranian forces opened from the slots with AK-74 rifles and a hidden PKM. Delta dropped flat. A machine gunner sent controlled bursts from a MK-48 Mod 0 into the slots while a breacher crawled forward with 2 blocks of C4. He slapped them onto the shutter anchors and pulled back. The blast ripped both shutters loose. Delta surged through the smoke. 5 Iranian forces were killed in the side room. 7 more tried to fall back to the command level. Bravo linked with Delta 1 minute later. That gave the U.S. Army 44 operators in the center corridor. They needed all of them. The next blast door was thicker and backed by a concrete barricade. Bravo used a shaped charge on the lock. The door blew open but stopped on the barricade. A second operator shoved a camera under the gap. 11 Iranian forces waited behind it with AK-74 rifles and 2 RPG-7 launchers. Bravo fired a Carl Gustav M3 round through the opening. The barricade split. Delta and Bravo entered together and cleared the chamber in less than 40 seconds. 2 U.S. Army operators were hit in the legs. Both stayed conscious, both kept firing. At 2:20, Charlie finally cut the lower floors in half. They blew the cable trunk that connected the west tunnel, the command room, and the generator hall. Emergency lights came on, vent fans slowed. Iranian forces started moving by flashlight. That made them easier to track. Alpha then left 6 operators on the surface with M249 SAW weapons to hold the ridge and sent the other 14 into the east tunnel to squeeze the complex from the rear. For the first time, Iranian forces inside Ghost Tunnel were trapped between 4 Delta elements instead of facing a single breach. The defender still had 1 strong card. The generator hall fed the launch servers and powered the command vault doors. 38 Iranian forces packed the room behind concrete dividers. ammo crates, and 3 running diesel units. If they held for even 12 minutes, they could keep the server stack alive long enough to push data out through a buried backup line. Charlie attacked from the catwalk while Alpha hit from the East Service Hall. Iranian forces fired PKM bursts upward and launched 3 RPG-7 rounds toward the catwalk supports. 1 support failed. 2 Delta operators fell 4 meters. 1 stood up, 1 did not. Charlie answered with M4A1 fire and 6 grenades. Alpha swept the floor with a M24OB from the door. The hall broke apart. Well, at 2:22, Delta hit the missile command chamber. The room was larger than expected. It had 18 workstations, 6 wall displays, 3 launch approval consoles, and a hardened vault at the rear. 24 Iranian forces were still inside. Some fired from behind the consoles. Others tried to drag code binders toward the vault. Delta shot the lights over the center row and advanced by the glow of backup panels. 1 team fired into the left side stations, another crossed right and reached the vault door. A breacher placed 2 shaped charges on the hinges while 3 operators covered him with MK18 CQBR ER carbines. The charges blew, the vault opened. Inside were 11 sealed code cases, 4 encrypted drives, and the fiber map for all 24 launch units. Iranian forces made their last serious push at 2:24. 46 defenders from the unused south tunnel tried to break back into the command level. They came in tight, using the smoke and dead ground between storage rooms. Bravo heard them first and pivoted to block the corridor. A MK48 Mod 0 locked down the center. An M249 SAW cut the left wall. Iranian forces fired 2 RPG-7 rounds and a long PKM burst. The first rocket struck a door frame, the second hit a dead generator and filled the passage with hot metal. Bravo held. Then Alpha arrived from the east tunnel and caught the attacking force from the side. The corridor collapsed into a close fight that lasted 3 minutes. When it ended, 28 Iranian forces were dead. 11 were wounded and 7 were pinned in a storage room and captured. By 2:26, the result was clear, but the work was not done. Delta copied the launch logs, bagged the code cases, and spread thermite across all 18 workstations. Charlie set charges on the remaining signal racks and both radio rooms. Bravo ignited the 4 guidance trucks in the vehicle bay. Alpha swept the outer bunkers again and killed the last ZU. ZU-23 crew when 3 Iranian forces tried to reman the gun. The U.S. Army then moved to the final target, a hardened server spine under the command floor that linked the mountain to missile brigades outside Isfahan. A breacher cut the panel. Inside were 12 shielded data trunks and 8 cooling units. Delta packed the chamber with 46 kilograms of C4. At 2:28, Iranian reinforcements were finally moving. 2 truck columns with 64 additional Iranian forces were 19 kilometers away. They were too late. U.S. Army Delta Force had already started the destruction phase. Thermite burned through console frames and drive cages. The cord ran along the server spine. Charlie planted 8 charges on the generator hall fuel lines. Bravo put demolition packs on both west tunnel supports. Alpha called the ridge clear and marked the extraction lanes. At 2:31, Delta triggered the first sequence. The missile command chamber flashed white. The server spine folded in on itself. 3 seconds later, the generator hall erupted and the lower ventilation system failed. The withdrawal began at 2:33. Delta carried out 4 killed and 9 wounded. 2 more wounded operators walked with assistance. The code cases, encrypted drives, and routing map came out in 6 load bags. Bravo was last out of the west tunnel. They fired 1 final Carl Gustav M3 round into the sagging entrance and brought half the ceiling down behind them. Charlie climbed the north shaft under cover from Alpha's M249 SAW guns on the ridge. Iranian forces still alive inside the mountain fired blind with AK-74 rifles, but the smoke, broken lights, and blocked halls made organized pursuit impossible. At 2:38, the last Delta Force operators cleared the ridgeline. By 3:40, the operation was over. U.S. Army Delta Force lost 4 killed and 11 wounded. Iranian forces lost 103 killed, 124 wounded, and 89 captured. The raid destroyed 18 missile command workstations, 4 encrypted signal racks, 3 launch approval consoles, 4 guidance trucks, 3 diesel generators, 2 radio rooms, 2 tunnel support sections, 1 hardened server spine, and large sections of the Ghost Tunnel complex for an estimated loss of $428 million. Iran had built the facility to survive air attack, hide missile control, and buy time for a response. Instead, 84 U.S. Army Delta Force operators entered the mountain, broke its command system, and left before the nearest reinforcements could fight their way in. Iranian forces had rock cover, steel doors, buried cables, and 348 defenders. What they did not have was 84 U.S. Army Delta Force operators willing to erase a missile command center in 90 minutes.